Here's what my morning looks like when I use Woodsbot's tools, indicators, artificial intelligence, limit order bots to form a bias before New York Open. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, let's get started. So currently I have USDTD on the screen or on my chart right now. And again, guys, like I said last week, this is the chart that you want to form a bias on. This is the first chart you want to look at, and then you want to start moving down to Bitcoin. So right now you can see that USDT having the indicator 4-hour levels on right now. We're tapping into weekly zones as well as a 4-hour zone. So we're looking at the 9% zone right now, which is a pretty decent support level. This was currently resistance. Now we have flipped it and we are trading inside of it as support, which basically means that if USDTD is bouncing, then the market is moving inverse of that. So if it's bouncing, Bitcoin and the entire alt market is going down. So you guys want to, pay attention to that. But let's say if this is rejecting, if USDT is rejecting, then the market is moving up, Bitcoin as well as alts. So again, this is something that you guys want to pay attention to is, how is this pair or this index trading? Very, very important. So it's really as easy as that. As I like to flick on the Woodsbot indicator level, go on the higher time frame, start at the 4 hours. I'll look at the weekly as well. You can see that the weekly is in a very crucial zone. Where obviously we don't have any more resistance levels up ahead. So getting a weekly closure below 8.8% is super important in the market. You can also see that we have a weekly bearish divergence. So that's what's kind of making me have a bias on a higher time frame bias that USDT is going to dump and the market's going to pump back up. It's just going to take some time because we are on that higher time frame. We also have a daily bearish div, which is again bullish for the market. Very, very bullish for the market. So what I'm doing is I'm just going on those higher time frames, setting those alerts around those indicator levels, support and resistance on USDT. And once those alerts hit, I am looking at the divergences. I'm looking at the RSI to form an opinion of, okay, whether are we going to go up or down. But as of right now, looking at the 4 hour, looking at the daily, I think that we could probably pump back up to 9.42%. Or pump up to 9.42%, or, kind of hold this high confluence area. Maybe chop around here for a bit and then break. But again, the big closure is looking for that weekly 8.8% closure under. Once we get that, that is confirmation that the market's going to breathe, Bitcoin's going to pump, the altcoins are going to pump. That's going to tell me, okay, now I need to start getting entries. Mic check 1 2 3 4 5. Mic check, mic check. Could you guys not hear me before? Can't hear? Could you guys hear the entire time? That's the big thing because I was just talking about this chart. Okay, perfect. Okay. So we just broke down USDT, and I'll do another quick just example of where I'm looking at. Again, we're looking at the higher time frames. We're starting at the higher time frames. We're starting at the weekly, moving down to the daily, going down to the 4 hour. We're having the Woodsbot premium indicator on to see where those support and resistance levels are. We're setting alerts at those support and resistance levels, okay? And the big takeaway is closures under that 8.8% on the weekly. We're looking at the 4-hour. We're looking at it to tap the 9.2%, as well as on the daily, we're looking for it to tap the 9.4%. So that's why we have all these alerts set. Once we get those alerts set, we're looking at the RSI for, a reversal signal, bearish divergence. If we get a bearish divergence in these areas, then the market will reject, and BTC as well as the altcoin market will pump back up. All right. The other thing that I want to point out, guys, is this actually. So when I'm looking at, I have it on this page, basically I have all of the all of the tools. So as soon as I look at the USDT chart myself, I go right into the combo alerts. Now, what the combo alerts tells me is basically it confirms my bias, if my bias is correct. So I like to form a bias personally, just based off of my knowledge of trading, and then I like to use the tools as a confirmation if my bias is correct. So then I will go into combo div alerts or combo alerts, and I will see, okay, total 2 is in a bullish area, in a market reversal area. We're getting a weekly bullish RSI divergence that's 17 bars. So that's a pretty strong bullish divergence if you guys know your bar set of divergences. Okay, we're getting a total 2 weekly bullish divergence similar to total 3 weekly divergence. USDT, we pointed that out. We have a weekly bearish divergence. USDTD, again, we have a daily RSI divergence. We pointed that out in the chart as well, right? USDC, we have a weekly bearish divergence. Getting those bearish divergences on those USDT pairs is bullish for the market. Seeing total 2 or total, and then total 2, total 3, seeing those bullish divergences on the higher time frame, that is bullish for the market. And on top of that, we have BTC daily RSI as well as a BTC weekly RSI bullish divergence, which is again bullish. So I take a look at that. I try to confirm my bias if it is correct or not. All right. Then, you know what? Let's look at some other coins. Okay, so we look at the OBOS daily. We'll see if BTC is in there. Okay, BTC is in there. We have a lot of other high caps in there, like Dogecoin, which is good to see. I don't really look at the mid caps or low caps right now. It's going to be mainly high caps and majors that I'm focusing on. The reason why, the market's slow. Why would I be playing low caps if the market's slow? If you're playing low caps, you need to have volume. If there's no volume in the market, the coin won't move. Can you guys all hear me? Jitel, can you hear me? Perfect. Okay. Okay, so now I looked at the combo alerts. Now I'm gonna go to the BTC chart. So obviously, with USDT pumping right now, the market is taking a hit. There's no lie about that. We're seeing a pretty harsh rejection off of resistance, off of the confluence zones of resistance on the indicator. Okay, now where are we looking to possibly long? The market's rejecting. Okay, we've already missed the short at the end of the day. The short is playing out. It's already hit resistance. We're kind of chopping around. So then where do you look? You look for the long side. Okay, so you start marking out those support and resistance levels. Now, luckily, the indicator does it for you. But again, you still have to set those alerts, So what I like to do is I like to click the high confluence zones on and just kind of clean up my chart, clear out my noise a little bit, all right, and set those alerts. I'm just setting those alerts, support and resistance. All right, now let's pop back on the confluence only zones. Let's take that off and let's get some more levels here. You can see that we tapped into the 4 hour resistance level there and had a very clean rejection. And now we are chopping between support and resistance. I'm not looking to play this right now. I am definitely not looking to play this. I would maybe be interested to play the 58.7, but I actually want the 57 level. This is my main area right here. Sweep of these lows. And, we'll look at the RSI and see if that's actually heading there as well, because we need further confirmation. Okay, so I'm looking at the RSI. I'm not seeing any bullish reasons to take a trade here, except for maybe on the 5 minute. But again, we're not looking at the 5 minute as total confirmation to take a trade. We're looking at the 30, the 4 hour, the 15 minute for total confirmation to take a trade. Now we're looking at the 4 hour RSI down here. And where are we? We're not in an oversold region. We're not in an overbought region. So guess what that means for me? That means I am not taking a trade. Until we are in an oversold region or an overbought region, that is when I take a trade. But that doesn't mean that we can't form a plan here. So let's form a plan. Exactly, Storky. It's always about discipline and forming a plan. It's Monday too. There's no rush. You want to form a bias on Monday. Okay, where are we going? What levels have we touched? What did we do over the weekend? You're basically asking yourself these questions, and then you're answering it by looking at the chart and looking at the tools that we provide. So again, we're at the 4 hour time frame on BTC. We're just setting alerts. We're setting alerts and then waiting for TA to play out. So I've set resistance alerts. I've set support alerts. Let's set some more here. I'm setting these alerts. Just because I want to be ready when these levels tap up or down. But let's look at the higher time frame. Now this is, again, very, very important because like we pointed out before, we're getting weekly bullish divergences on BTC. So let's pull up the weekly chart. We're also getting daily bullish divergences from the combo alerts bot. So let's pull up the daily chart and let's take a look and let's see if it's actually, confirming. Actually, let's pull up a different chart. Let's look up a spot chart. Okay, so now we're on the weekly chart. We're starting at the higher time frames. Let's pull up our support and resistance levels. Okay, this is interesting to me. All right, so we had previous all-time high right here. So that is a massive zone just to pay attention to, okay? We had a bunch of support, a cluster or an order block form here before before it broke out to another all-time high. All right, we have a head, or we have a shoulder, we have a head, and then we have a slight shoulder. Okay, so what does that mean? We have the head and shoulder pattern right now. The head and shoulder pattern is playing out. Okay. And we are coming into support regions. So gathering all of that data just now of having these massive order block right here as we're tapping into it. We have some liquidity down here on the weekly. Oh, sorry about that. Some pretty decent liquidity right here. We have support levels that we're tapping into on the weekly time frame. Again, these are massively powerful. These are super powerful support levels. We also have a bullish weekly divergence. Okay, now my bias is looking to long or looking to buy spot here. I am actually super comfortable deploying a decent amount of money on spot here just because of all of the signals that are telling me to, that the market is going to reverse here. Now, it's not going to reverse in a couple of days. It's not going to reverse in a couple of months. This is a 6 to 12 month time frame. This is where you want to be deploying spot. This is just my total analysis, as well as, you know, the reasoning with the tools as well as the bots. This is my total area that, you know, I think it's time to deploy money on spot, a decent amount, probably 50% of what I want to allocate. You know, setting a bid here, you know, 50% bid here. I would love 52K, maybe a sweep of 49K, but I don't think that we're going too much lower. I don't think that we're going to be hitting 38K. You know, having your invalidation slightly below, you know, below 40 or 45. Is Woods in here right now? So let's break down the reasonings why I would, you know, start deploying capital here for the long term, and why I would start looking at, you know, really just thinking that the market is going to turn over here. First of all, we're at weekly support. Second of all, we're getting weekly divergences setting in. All right, those are two very massive reasons. Third, the head and shoulder pattern is playing out. And I think that the worst of the bear market is over. Now it's just going to take some time. It's going to take some time. So what I think is going to happen is something like this. And then boom. So chop around all the way till the end of the year roughly, and then break out. The big thing is we need to reclaim the 200 EMA on the weekly. Very important. This right here. Once we reclaim that, we should break out of this meme line. The market should just pump back up. So another big reason why I think that we're also going to be bottoming out here is because we're getting the signals across other market indexes, right? We have the USDTD. Okay, it is basically signaling bearish divergence, market reversal, which means that the market would pump. We have BTC, you know, weekly bullish divergence. We have total weekly bullish divergence. Those combo alerts, guys, you do not want to fade whatsoever. They are one of the most powerful tools if used correctly. Okay, so now let's take a look at, you know, how else I use some of the tools and bots. Again, my favorite is obviously going to be the combo alerts every single time. When it comes to, you know, intraday trading or high time frame trading, combo alerts is the higher time frame. You know, OBOS div daily, this is the high time frame. This is where you're looking at, you know, for plays to play out for months. This isn't, you know, low time frame stuff. Once you start working down your the OBOS divs, you'll get into the lower time frame intraday. So this is if you're wanting to scalp, you know, in intraday, take a couple trades today, and they will probably play out in a, you know, decent amount of time, right? But once you start working up the higher time frame of the bots, you know, those are gonna take some time to play out. So let's take a look at some, you know, intraday stuff. How I would play some of this stuff if it makes sense to, right? So again, we have our bias. Our bias is USDT is pumping. What does that mean? We're going to be looking for more shorts than longs. We are getting flagged for longs here. So what I'm going to do is, okay, is USDT coming up to resistance? Should we be looking for more longs than shorts? Again, we haven't tapped resistance again. We're kind of just chopping around here. So I'm going to wait for my alert once we tap into resistance, and then look at the OBOS divs and see, okay, if we're tapping into resistance on USDTD, I will start looking for some of these longs, but I do think that these are too early, okay, just based off of the bias that I have formed myself. Okay, second thing I do, let's go take a look at the platinum tier. Let's go see if there's any trades coming in. Or let's just go to trades active. Okay. Valid limit orders. BTC 60,981 and ETH 1624. Let's go take a look at BTC. Let's go take a look and see where the limit order bot is looking. So limit order bot is looking for a sweep of the highs. And this is what another little tip and trick that I like to use. And this is something that you guys can add to your arsenal. Okay. Let's go back to what I do is I grab the entry, I copy it, I go over to my short tool, paste. So I have the exact entry and exact stop loss. Stop loss is always going to be 5%, so I'm going to bring that down, maybe right about there. Okay. So then what I do is, okay, it's looking for a sweep of the highs here. The limit order bot is also looking for a short around this level. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my horizontal tool and I am going to mark it out. I'm going to mark it out and I am going to set an alert. So now if we tap into that level, I know that the bot is looking to short. All right. And then let's say if I'm not really paying attention to the charts and I see that the resistance levels are, shifting, or the support levels are shifting, because the indicator levels do that. It shifts with the market, with how the market is reacting. And then next thing you know, okay, I get the alert that the limit short order entry is getting signaled and getting filled inside of the Discord. All right, has the support and resistance levels shifted a little bit? Is there a resistance level there? Okay, is there a bearish divergence at this level that the limit order bot is taking? These are just added confluences for me to take a trade. Is this all making sense to you guys? Are you guys kind of seeing my routine and strategy around using the bots to, find trades, form a bias in the market? Is it all kind of clicking with you guys? I can go over specific things if you guys would like. I know there isn't many people here, but I am recording it. But if there is anything that you guys would like to go over, just let me know. Let's go take a look at other coins. So Fartcoin is pumping. Now Fartcoin, Pump Fund, they've been pumping with Sol. These are coins that I've been trying to get a pullback on. I haven't been able to get it. Let's take a look and see if we can find an entry. So I originally wanted 11,870 due to the high confluence zones on the indicator. Again, I do not fade the high confluence zones. I always set my alerts. I always wait for them to come into area of a high confluence zone before I execute, and then I look at bearish and bullish divergences. Are we setting up a bearish divergence down here? So that would mean, price would come down and, into this level, I would get alerted. I would get alerted of it. At the time, I thought that this was the highs because we are at resistance here. We didn't get the highs, but let's say if theoretically this played out perfectly. All right. Price would then come down into my high confluence zone. I would get alerted. I would then look at the 4-hour RSI. So I would look at the 4-hour RSI. Is it an oversold or overbought region? Okay, it isn't. Is there a bullish divergence at the support level? Okay, there isn't. Okay, then I would not execute. Right now, we are getting some bearish divergences. We're also at a very high overbought region of the RSI on the 4-hour. Okay, are there any other bearish divergences? The 15-minute, there's no really bearish divergences. 5-minute, there's 5-minute bearish divergences that are already playing out. This right here, if we get a 4-hour closure, we have a hour 27 minutes. If we get a 4-hour closure under here, we're probably going to go back down to 13,480. This is something that I would be monitoring, and I will be monitoring. Okay, so if we are in a short zone on Farcoin, let's take a look and see if we can find a long zone, our Lux long trigger. If this is the local top or the local highs on Farcoin, that's where you'd set your fib. Again, if price just continues to push up, then you're just going to keep pulling your fib higher and higher. Okay. I don't mind 13,480 if we pull back here. I don't mind that at all. And I also don't mind lower. So I already have my alert set at the 0.75 fib on the higher time frame pull. I'm also going to set my alerts here on the 4-hour support level too. I'm also going to set my alerts at the 4-hour and daily resistance level. And I'm going to set my alerts here. But I do like I don't mind this. I also don't mind the 12,600 area. Wow, this played out beautifully. So you see what I'm saying, guys? And I'm going to go over this example too, because the hype has just been crazy. All right, let's go and take a look at just... Let's go replay this. All right. And again, I know it's easier just to replay stuff and go over examples that have played out. But again, if you play these types of plays over time, you will be profitable. It doesn't even matter if these high confluence zones break. And, you know, let's say you take a stop loss. These high confluence zones have higher probability over time. And, you know, the probability of you getting stopped out, it's still a chance. But the chances of it playing out are a lot higher. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's take a look at this example of hype. All right. So we had a high confluence zone at 56,250. So what did we do? This whole stream, I've been setting alerts at support and resistance levels. All right. So let's set an alert. So, or wait, no, I just bought something. Let's set an alert here. Okay. So we set alert. Price is coming down. We are getting triggered for, we're in a long zone. All right. So price came down. Okay. We're in a long zone. All right. What is the RSI doing? The RSI is in a oversold region. Not quite oversold. All right. But not quite. But we are starting to get triggered that we are in a support area and we're looking to possibly get long. Okay. So I've set my bid. I got one fill here. Let's take a look at the 30-minute time frame. Okay, what is going on in the 30-minute time frame? We're kind of seeing, we're in the oversold region. We're kind of getting some weird looking, possibly bullish divergences. Nothing too concrete. Okay, look right there. 15-minute bullish divergence. That's confirmation. So we have support. We have a 15-minute bullish divergence. We're already in, but we've set DCA limits orders. We set a DCA limit order below us at this 4-hour level, and then we have our stop loss slightly below the 4-hour level. Okay, let's see how it plays out even further. Okay, all right, now we're fully filled. Okay, we have a finally the 4 hour is basically oversold. We're getting a bullish divergence as well on the 4 hour. Let's go down to the 30 minute. Okay, we're getting a bullish divergence on the 30 minute as well. But again, I'm looking more at the 15. How does the 15 look? This will decide how I really feel about this trade. Okay, bullish 15-minute divergence as well at that 4 hour level that we DCA'd. Okay, now we're in profit. All right, our entry is roughly around here depending on how you DCA. I like to 50% DCA my first entry and then a 50% DCA my second entry. Okay, now we're in profit. We had all those confirmations. We had all those confirmations. We had the 4 hour RSI oversold. We had support and resistance levels, or we had support levels at that level we entered in, and we set a DCA zone just to protect ourselves and, you know, set a decently wide stop loss. Okay, we're filled, and let's see how the trade plays out. Again, something I want to highlight is look at how the trade is reacting around these resistance levels. Okay, so we tapped into the 4 hour 58, 54 resistance level. Guess what happened? We traded above it a little bit, rejected. Okay, once we flipped it, now we're using it as support. So if we flip resistance levels into support, that's further confirmation that the trade will play out. You can see here, when we tapped this resistance level, guess what happened? Instant rejection. These are the areas that if you're in a trade and the RR makes sense, these are the trades that you want to, or the areas, sorry. These are the areas that you want to take profit off of. So if we're already in nice profits and the RR makes sense, you know, why not take a massive amount at 1.81R or 1.62R? You would. You definitely 100% would take 50% off here and take to the bank, or even fully take it off. Okay, let's see how this trade plays out further around resistance levels and support levels. Okay, rejected off there. Once we flipped it, we rejected off here. Now we're using the previous resistance as support. You can see how we've bounced off of it. See? Chopped around, broke down, reclaimed. Now we're using it as support. Anyways, guys, I thought that was a really good example of basically, you know, what the indicator does and how it basically reacts off of certain levels and how it does. You know what I mean? If you were able to ride, again, this isn't an ideal world. This isn't realistic. But let's say if you entered here, you got fully filled and you had full confidence that this trade was playing out, that's a 5-hour trade. But again, that isn't, you know, realistic at the end of the day. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up the stream there. Appreciate everybody hopping on. I'm going to answer your quick questions. I see you use fibs sometimes. Do you tend to take those by themselves or wait for them to line up with confluence zones? I always wait for confluence zones. I always typically use fibs with Woodsbot levels, but you know, if I'm feeling a little bit lazy, because you know, traders are lazy at times, that's why we build indicators. That's why we build things for us to trade quicker, easier. That's pretty much the whole, a big premise of Woodsbot is to, you know, basically trade quicker, easier, faster. So I never trade fibs just by themselves. I always have to have multiple confluences no matter what. But I do like to use fibs from time to time. Lately, what I've been doing is I've just been setting alerts at support and resistance levels on the 4-hour time frame and higher time frames of Woodsbot levels, and then I wait for bullish or bearish divergences at those levels on lower time frames and higher time frames. Just like I've explained before. But that's basically what I've been doing lately. Hello, Del, do you ever used the 50 RSI 50 cooling as confluence for entries and exits according to your bias? I've never really heard of the RSI cooling, but I'm curious to learn about that. So if you have any further information on that, let me know. Send it my way and tag me. But yeah, guys, that was a good stream. Basically how I start my morning day, how I form a bias. We gave an example of how the indicator has been working around support and resistance levels and what I do using the indicator from day-to-day bias with the Woodsbot indicator. I appreciate everybody coming by. We have this stream recorded, so we'll get some clips out of it. Kind of just showing my routine in my day-to-day. Appreciate you guys. Everybody have a good day. I'll see you guys in the Discord, all right? And that is how I use the Woodsbot tools, indicators, and artificial intelligence trading bots to form bias on a Monday. This is what I do every day to form a bias inside of the market.